Welcome to CSS Breakdown, book by book season 4, where we're delving into the reflective and timeless wisdom of Will Durant's Fallen Leaves. In episode 2, we explore Durant's take on one of life's most potent and poetic phases, youth, a period of promise, passion, rebellion, and self-discovery. We're about to take a deep dive into Durant's insights, meticulously examining the transition, the boundless energy, the heightened sensations, and the profound awakenings that collectively define this unique and often tumultuous stage of life. Get ready to unpack a rich tapestry of observations that might just make you see your own youth, or perhaps the youth around you, in a dramatically new and illuminating light. Our mission today is, well, to give you a shortcut to truly understanding this pivotal period, as seen through the eyes of a master historian and philosopher.
What's truly fascinating here is how Durant, with his characteristic blend of, historical perspective and a deep empathetic understanding of human nature, distills the essence of youth. He doesn't just treat it as a simple chronological period, like a set number of years. Instead, he frames it as a dynamic state of being, an almost elemental force of nature. We're going to examine how his observations, written decades ago in Fallen Leaves, resonate with remarkable clarity and relevance even today, offering timeless insights into the very core of what it means to be young. He doesn't merely describe youthful exuberance, he probes the why behind the youthful spirit, really revealing its underlying mechanics and motivations.
Okay, let's unpack this core idea that Durant presents right at the outset. He frames youth as fundamentally a period of transition. That might sound straightforward. I mean, everyone transitions as they age, right? But I sense he's getting at something far more profound than just growing older. What exactly does he mean when he calls youth a fundamental transition?
You're absolutely right to pick up on that nuance. Durant isn't talking about just like a casual progression. He defines youth as this absolutely critical shift from play to work, from dependence on the family to dependence on oneself. Now, think about the immense weight of that statement. For years, often a decade and a half or more, a child's entire world is largely shaped by structured play, by the comforting and unwavering provision of parents, by a relatively predictable, often sheltered environment. Their basic needs, food, shelter, safety, even entertainment, are consistently met. Their days are often organized for them, and their responsibilities are minimal, largely confined to, their own well-being within the family unit.
And then, boom, the world outside starts to make its demands. Suddenly, or maybe more realistically, gradually, those expectations shift dramatically. You're no longer just existing within a family. You're being propelled towards contributing to the wider world, towards earning your own way, making independent decisions, forging a distinct identity that stands apart from the parental umbrella. That's not just a physical transition into adulthood, is it? It's a complete psychological and practical upheaval. You're moving from a sheltered environment where your whims might often be indulged, where you might feel like the center of the universe, to a world that demands you stand entirely on your own 2 feet, make your own living, and navigate incredibly complex social and economic landscapes. That's a gargantuan shift in identity and how you perceive your own agency. It fundamentally reshapes your understanding of self and your role in the broader human tapestry.
Precisely. And this momentous transition, the shedding of the old skin, inherently creates a particular disposition that Durant captures with incredible precision. He describes youth as a little anarchic and egotistic. Now, at first blush, that might sound like a rather harsh judgment, maybe even cynical, but he immediately follows it with a compelling, almost compassionate explanation. Because in the family, its every whim or want was favored by unstinting parental love. Unquote. If you have been petted for years, if your desires have been consistently, lovingly, and perhaps even excessively catered to by an indulgent family, what happens when you suddenly step out into a world that doesn't operate that way?
That's a truly crucial insight. If your entire formative experience has cultivated this sense of self as paramount, where your needs are anticipated and met without much effort on your part, then suddenly being thrust into a reality where you're just one among many, where your whims are absolutely not favored, well, it would inevitably create a profound clash. It's a sudden experience of exhilarating freedom, yes, but also a stark, perhaps even brutal confrontation with a reality that doesn't cater to your every want or even acknowledge your inherent specialness. You've been structured, albeit lovingly, for so long, and now that familiar, comforting structure is gone, replaced by a vast, indifferent, often challenging world. It's like being released from a beautiful gilded cage into the wild.
And it's in that moment where that deeply ingrained early conditioning meets the unyielding realities of the wider world that we see the foundation for this anarchic and egotistic nature emerge. The inherent self-focus born from being indulged, coupled with the exhilarating, sometimes overwhelming taste of genuine independence, can easily lead to a period of intense self-assertion. It's not necessarily a malicious intent, It's often a natural, almost instinctive outgrowth of this profound, disorienting shift in circumstances. It's a recalibration, as you mentioned, and not always a graceful one.
So once youth steps into this new, wider world, what's the immediate, almost intoxicating result of this newfound freedom, this sudden shedding of familial dependence? Durant paints such a vivid and ambitious picture of it.
He describes it with sweeping, almost poetic language. Passing into the world, youth, petted for years and now for the first time free, drinks in the deep delight of liberty and advances to conquer and remold the universe. This isn't merely a casual stroll into adulthood or a tentative step towards independence. It's a grand sweeping declaration of intent, a powerful surge of ambition. It perfectly encapsulates the sheer, boundless optimism and almost unshakable self-belief that seems uniquely characteristic of the stage of life. There's an unyielding conviction that anything is possible, that the world isn't a fixed entity but a malleable canvas waiting to be painted, or perhaps a stubborn mountain waiting to be climbed and reshaped entirely by one's own powerful, determined hands.
It's that feeling of infinite possibility, isn't it? The world suddenly opens up in a way it never has before, and there seems to be no limit to what you can achieve, what you can change. This boundless energy, this unwavering self-belief, this unyielding optimism leads directly into youth's next defining characteristic: action. It's not enough to just dream or imagine. Youth is fundamentally driven to put that boundless energy into motion.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture of human endeavor, Durant emphasizes action as the very pulse of youth, drawing a powerful and evocative parallel to Demosthenes, the great Athenian orator. He quotes Demosthenes' famous advice on effective public speaking: action, action, and action. Durant then posits that this very same emphasis applies with equal, if not greater, force to youth itself. This signifies that for youth, life isn't primarily about contemplation or abstract thought or passive observation. It's fundamentally about engagement, movement, and tangible output. It's not just physical movement, mind you, though that's certainly part of it. It's a pervasive mental and emotional drive to engage with the world, to manifest their internal energy externally. They don't just think about doing, they do.
That kinetic energy is palpable, and it fuels so much of what we instantly associate with young people, isn't it? Think about the sheer unquantifiable energy poured into social movements, for instance, where youth are so often at the forefront, actively protesting, advocating, and demanding sweeping change. Or in the realm of sports, where peak physical performance, relentless training, and pushing the limits of the human body are paramount. Even in the world of entrepreneurship, when young individuals are starting new ventures, fresh ideas are met with unbridled enthusiasm and the raw willingness to just go and make things happen, often without a fully developed cautious plan, just a sheer force of will and an almost naive belief in success. It's a dynamism that defines them.
That boundless confidence you mentioned earlier, that sense of infinite possibility, ties right into this next observation. And this is where it really gets interesting. Durant describes youth as confident and improvident as a god. Now, improvident is a really key word there, and it's worth dwelling on. It implies a distinct lack of foresight, a disregard for future consequences, and almost reckless disregard for tomorrow. Why would youth be improvident? Well, it largely stems from a perceived invincibility, a feeling that no true harm can come to them, that they are somehow immune to the pitfalls and failures that beset others. This often leads to an almost exclusive focus on the immediate gratification of experience on the here and now, rather than any cautious long-term planning or consideration of risks.
So, this improvidence manifests as a willingness to take significant risks, perhaps even ill-advised ones, because the immediate thrill, the adventure, the sheer experience of it, fundamentally outweighs any potential downside or long-term repercussion. Durant highlights this vividly, saying youth loves excitement and adventure more than food. That's an incredibly strong statement, isn't it? It places the pursuit of thrilling experience above even basic biological sustenance. How does this improvidence play out in the practicalities of decision-making or risk-taking in the real world that we see around us? We see it manifest in everything from gravitating towards extreme sports to making bold, often impulsive early career choices where passion or immediate opportunity often trumps practicality and long-term security.
It leads directly to an almost insatiable preference for the extreme, for the limitless, for anything that pushes boundaries. Durant observes that youth loves the superlative, the exaggerated, the limitless, because it has abounding energy and frets to liberate its strength. When you feel like your energy is truly boundless, like an inexhaustible wellspring that will never run dry, There's a deep, almost instinctual, psychological need to push boundaries, to test the very limits of what's possible for yourself and for the world around you. This manifests as a yearning for profound experiences, for grand artistic statements that deliberately break conventions, for revolutionary ideas that seek to overturn existing orders entirely. It's about feeling the full, surging power of one's own nascent capabilities. And he adds, quite pointedly, it loves new and dangerous things. A man is as young as the risks he takes. This suggests that the willingness to embrace the unknown, to step boldly into peril, to face the uncertain, is not just a characteristic, but a defining hallmark of genuine youthful vitality. It's a measure of their spirit.
That's a powerful and slightly unsettling thought. If youth is this inherent force of nature, constantly seeking liberation and pushing boundaries, how then does it interact with the structured world of laws, societal norms, and established expectations? What does this mean for rules and regulations that older generations try to impose?
Well, there's an inherent, almost inevitable conflict, as Durant so astutely points out. Youth bears law and order grudgingly. Think about the classic image of teenage rebellion, or the youthful defiance of established norms and traditions that seems to reappear in every generation. Why is this so consistent? Because, as he explains, youth is asked to be quiet when noise is the vital medium. Noise isn't just an auditory phenomenon, it's an expression, an outlet for boundless energy, a declaration of presence, a means of making their mark. It is asked to be passive when it longs for action. To expect a young person whose very being pulsates with the overwhelming drive to do, to create, to move, to simply sit idly by, is to go fundamentally against their nature, against their biological imperative. And perhaps most powerfully, he says, it is asked to be sober and judicious when its very blood makes youth a continuous intoxication. This isn't mere hyperbole, it's a profound metaphor. Youth isn't just a chronological phase, it's a physiological and psychological state of continuous exuberance, a natural high that makes restraint, caution, and moderation feel profoundly unnatural, oppressive, and even painful. The common perception of youthful defiance isn't just about being contrary. It's often a deeply natural, almost involuntary reaction to an environment that seeks to stifle its innate, vibrant vitality.
This state of being, this constant effervescence, this deep-seated resistance to restraint, culminates in a motto that perfectly captures youth's spirit, even if it explicitly goes against traditional wisdom and ancient philosophical ideals.
Indeed, Durant states it is the age of abandon, and its motto, Undelphianly, is Panta again, everything in excess. This is a stark and deliberate contrast to the ancient Greek ideal of moderation, famously embodied in the Delphic maxim Meetin again, which means nothing in excess. Why is excess rather than moderation a defining feature of youth? Because when energy is abundant, when experience is fresh, and when desire is unchilled, there's simply no inherent break. It's not just a lack of restraint, it's almost a psychological imperative. Imagine a boundless, surging river. You don't just sip from it, you want to plunge in and feel its full force. This drive for excess explains not only youthful recklessness, but also their immense capacity for profound, unwavering dedication to causes, to artistic pursuits, or even to single-minded, ambitious goals. It's the raw, untamed engine behind the revolutionary spirit that doesn't just want reform, but often demands a complete overhaul. And this fundamental nature leads to another crucial observation. Youth is never tired, it lives in the present, regrets no yesterdays and dreads no morrows. It climbs buoyantly a hill whose summit conceals the other side. What allows youth to live so fully, so unapologetically in the present, unburdened by the weighty regrets of the past or the nagging anxieties of the future? It's precisely the absence of a long past to regret, and crucially the absence of a long, potentially daunting future to fear. The horizon is always just beyond the next rise, always full of promise, not dread, inviting them forward with endless optimism.
Moving now from youth's boundless energy and drive for action into the more sensory realm of perception, Durant talks about how youth experiences the world. It's not just what they do, but how they feel everything around them, the very texture of existence.
He describes it with a beautiful clarity. It is the age of sharp sensation and unchilled desire. Experience is not soured yet with repetition and disillusionment. To have sensation at all is then a sweet and glorious thing. Imagine for a moment experiencing everything for the first time, truly, deeply, without any filter of past disappointment or cynicism. Every color is more vibrant, every sound more resonant, every touch more profound and immediate. The world hasn't yet worn down the edges of perception, hasn't dulled the senses with repeated exposure or the inevitable disappointments and compromises that life can bring. There's a profound lack of jadedness, a pristine, almost raw quality to their encounters with the world. It's as if their sensory receptors are dialed up to 11.
And that's it, isn't it? It's the profound, unfiltered impact of those first experiences, the overwhelming, all-consuming rush of a first love, the sheer awe and wonder of a first grand adventure into the unknown, the exhilarating challenge of facing a significant obstacle for the very first time. There's no prior context of failure or cynicism to temper the purity of the sensation, no memory of past hurts to dilute the joy. Everything is genuinely new, everything is vividly intense, and simply having any sensation at all is a source of immense, unadulterated joy. It's a time when existence itself feels like a gift.
And this unadulterated, uninhibited experience transforms the world itself for youth. Durant continues. Every moment is loved for itself, and the world is accepted as an aesthetic spectacle, something to be absorbed and enjoyed, something of which one may write verses, and for which one may thank the stars. The world isn't seen as a complex problem to solve, or a heavy burden of responsibilities to shoulder, or even a source of nagging anxiety. Instead, for youth, it's a boundless source of beauty and wonder, an ongoing, breathtaking performance to be cherished and celebrated. This is precisely why we often see such a natural inclination in youth towards art, towards poetry, towards music, and towards passionate, expressive forms of creativity. These are direct, almost necessary expressions of that heightened sensitivity and appreciation for the world as a grand aesthetic spectacle. They're not just creating for a purpose, they're responding to the raw, inherent beauty and intensity they perceive all around them.
So if we follow this logic, with all this unchilled desire, sharp sensation, profound appreciation for the world as a beautiful spectacle, what is happiness for youth, according to Durant? How does he encapsulate that elusive state for this specific period of life?
For youth, Durant simply states, happiness is the free play of the instincts, and so is youth. This powerful statement connects back directly to the idea of panta again, everything in excess, and the liberation of strength, the boundless energy we discussed earlier. Happiness for youth isn't found in restraint or in careful moderation or in self-control. It's found precisely in the unbridled, unrestrained, joyful expression of one's natural inclinations, one's desires, and one's inexhaustible energies. It's the sheer delight of living without significant internal or external impediments, letting your natural exuberance of vitality define your every experience. It's a radical freedom.
That raises an important, almost melancholic question about the fleeting nature of this period. This is truly where living in its most vibrant sense happens. Then what happens afterwards? Is this pure, unbridled happiness something that simply fades away?
Durant poses a truly stark, almost tragic truth, one that resonates deeply with many as they age. For the majority of us, it is the only period of life in which we live. Most men of 40 are but a reminiscence, the burnt-out ashes of what was once a flame. This implies a profound and tragic reality that for many individuals, the vibrancy, the unchilled sensation, the full, uninhibited expression of self, and that unique, boundless capacity for happiness is largely confined to youth. What does it mean, then, to be burnt-out ashes? It suggests a profound loss of that vibrant energy, that unbridled spirit, that immediate connection to sensation, leaving behind only the wistful memory of what once was. He underscores this poignancy by stating, the tragedy of life is that it gives us wisdom only when it has stolen youth.
It's the common heartbreaking lament of age, isn't it? The wisdom gained through hard-won experience and accumulated years often comes at the bitter cost of the very energy, the very physical and spiritual vitality that would have allowed one to fully embrace life when those opportunities for penta again were most abundant. You constantly hear older individuals talking about all the things they would do if only they were young again, or if they knew then what they know now. And Durant brings in a poignant French proverb that perfectly encapsulates this cruel paradox. Si jeunesse savait et vieillesse pouvait. If youth knew how, and old age could.
This proverb beautifully highlights the inherent, almost cruel paradox of the human condition. The one period of life that is vibrant, energetic, and unburdened enough to truly live to its fullest capacity often lacks the accumulated wisdom, the foresight, and the discernment to navigate it optimally, to make the best choices, to avoid the most painful pitfalls. And then, when wisdom finally arrives, gleaned from years of experience, mistakes, and reflection, the raw energy, the sheer capacity for panta again, for living everything in excess, is often gone. It leaves us with this profound, almost aching tension between vitality and sagacity, rarely coexisting at their absolute peaks. It's a trade-off that defines the human journey.
Given youth's inherent unbridled energy, it's no surprise that Durant links health directly to action. He really hammers home the physical aspect of youthful well-being, elevating it beyond just a secondary consideration.
Absolutely. He states, health lies in action, and so it graces youth. And then he adds, To be busy is the secret of grace, and half the secret of content. This isn't just about physical health in a narrow medical sense, it's about the profound, almost spiritual connection between vigorous physical activity, mental well-being, and even a certain aesthetic grace or fluidity in movement, particularly for young people. The innate restlessness of children and adolescents isn't just a passing phase that they'll grow out of, it's a fundamental, deeply ingrained need to move, to explore, to engage physically with their environment. Their minds are wired for discovery, and their bodies are wired almost perfectly to facilitate that very process. It's a holistic connection between physical exertion and inner peace.
So it's about finding profound satisfaction and even happiness in doing and creating an active engagement rather than just passively acquiring or consuming. And what's truly fascinating here is Durant's inversion of traditional priorities, especially when it comes to the very purpose and structure of education. He really flips the script on what we typically prioritize.
He challenges the pervasive consumerist mindset head-on by stating, "Let us ask the gods not for possessions, but for things to do. Happiness is in making things rather than in consuming them." He even brings in Thoreau's evocative idea of building one's own home, not just as a practical endeavor, but as a path to spiritual fulfillment, suggesting that if we did, song would come back to the heart of man, as it comes to the bird when it builds its nest. This elevates the intrinsic value of creation, of active participation over passive consumption, the deep satisfaction of building something with your own hands, of creating something new, or even simply engaging in strenuous physical labor isn't just productive, it's intrinsically rewarding. It brings a profound, lasting contentment that mere consumption, however pleasurable in the moment, simply cannot provide. It's a deep, primal satisfaction.
And this emphasis on action and creation leads to a rather provocative statement about schools and sports, almost a direct challenge to the very foundation of the academic establishment as we know it. He doesn't hold back.
It's incredibly direct, almost iconoclastic. He suggests, if we cannot build our homes, we can at least walk and throw and run, and we should never be so old as merely to watch games instead of playing them. This emphasizes the critical, almost moral importance of active participation versus passive observation. He then equates "let us play" with "let us pray," asserting that the results are more assured. This isn't just hyperbole or a playful turn of phrase. It points to the profound spiritual, emotional, and physical benefits of active engagement, of embodying play, which he sees as more reliable and tangible in its positive outcomes than rote religious practice or purely intellectual pursuits in isolation. It's about being in your body, fully present.
And here's the kicker, the line that truly makes you pause. Hence, youth is wise in preferring the athletic field to the classroom and in rating baseball above philosophy. He even recalls a bespectacled Chinese student who described American universities quite memorably as athletic rather than purely academic. It's a striking, almost radical endorsement of physical activity as a primary, foundational form of education for youth. He suggests the foundational physical development, the building of a robust, capable body, is in some ways more crucial than pure intellectualism at that formative stage. It challenges our entire pedagogical framework.
This raises a truly important question. What foundation should education truly build upon if we're to cultivate well-rounded, capable individuals? Durant, drawing powerfully on the German philosopher Nietzsche, provides a rather bracing answer. "The first requisite of a gentleman," said Nietzsche, "is to be a perfect animal." This is a foundational, almost unapologetic argument that physical health, a robust, capable, and well-exercised body, is the absolute prerequisite for intellectual, emotional, and even moral well-being. It's not just a nice-to-have or recreational outlet, it's the bedrock upon which all other higher pursuits must necessarily rest. Without a strong, healthy body, intellectual aspirations can be hindered, and emotional resilience can falter.
So if the body is truly the fundamental foundation for everything else, then education, in its broadest sense, should profoundly reflect that priority.
Exactly. Durant argues, on that foundation, education should rise and build. Instruction in the care of the body should equal the lore of the mind. Imagine for a moment an educational system where physical literacy, practical nutrition, and vigorous, consistent movement were given as much weight, as much dedicated time and resources as mathematics, literature, or history. How would that fundamentally impact learning, cognitive development, emotional resilience, and overall societal health? He implies that a strong, healthy body doesn't just enable intellectual pursuits. It acts as a powerful buffer against life's inevitable hardships, its disappointments, and its emotional blows. He concludes this thought beautifully by saying that the pangs of despised love and the bitterness of truth will not long torture a frame made sound and strong by sleep in the air and action in the sun. A healthy body, forged through natural activity and rest, provides an incredible physical and psychological resilience, allowing one to bounce back from emotional and intellectual setbacks far more quickly and effectively.
So if the traditional classroom isn't supreme and the health of the body is paramount, what then is youth truly learning in those conventional school settings, and what is truly educating them in the long run, beyond the four walls of a lecture hall?
Durant, ever the pragmatist, pares down the traditional classroom experience to its bare essentials, separating the wheat from the chaff. What one primarily learns in school, he says, is learning to read, which is all that one learns in school, and is learning where and how to find what he may later need to know, which is the best of the arts that he acquires in college.
Huh.
He's making a crucial distinction here, not between good and bad learning, but between rote memorization or mere content delivery and the much more valuable meta skill of knowledge acquisition and navigation. The real enduring value isn't in simply what's fed to you, but in learning how to feed yourself intellectually, how to seek out, process, and critically evaluate information for yourself.
And that's about critical thinking, isn't it? It's not just about getting the right answers from a teacher or a textbook, but knowing how to ask the right questions, how to approach a problem, and how to find the answers yourself, wherever they may lie. And then he makes an even more profound statement about the practical application of knowledge, emphasizing its real-world test. Nothing learned from a book is worth anything until it is used and verified in life. Only then does it begin to affect behavior and desire. This suggests that true learning, the kind that genuinely transforms you, isn't just theoretical or abstract. It's profoundly experiential. You have to live it to apply it, to test it against reality, to truly understand it and internalize its lessons.
Precisely. And this leads him to a powerful and all-encompassing conclusion about what the ultimate educator truly is. He states, with striking simplicity, it is life that educates, and perhaps love more than anything else in life. This dramatically shifts the focus from formal institutions, from classrooms and textbooks, to the messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal realm of lived experience itself. And within that, he singles out love in all its forms as perhaps the most transformative and insightful teacher of all. This sets the stage beautifully for a profound, almost inevitable shift in youth's journey: the arrival of puberty and the powerful emergence of self-consciousness.
This is where the entire landscape of youth dramatically shifts. It's not just a collection of physical changes, but a complete, bewildering reordering of internal and external awareness. What exactly happens, according to Durant, at this pivotal moment?
Absolutely. Durant describes the arrival of puberty, and with it that self-consciousness which is the origin of thought. This is an incredibly critical insight, and it's worth pausing on. It's the idea that self-awareness, the ability to perceive oneself as a distinct entity, an individual with a unique inner world, actually precedes complex, deliberative thought. Before this, he suggests action can be indeliberate, instinctive, unburdened by self-reflection. But suddenly, as he says, the boy has lost the readiness and unity of indeliberate action, and the pale cast of thought overshadows him. There's a new awkwardness, a newfound hesitation, perhaps even a charming clumsiness, as spontaneous, unthinking movement is replaced by intense self-reflection and cautious deliberation. It's the profound shift from simply being to suddenly thinking about being, to becoming aware of oneself as perceived by others.
And how does this profound internal shift, this new self-consciousness, manifest outwardly, physically, and perhaps most entertainingly, socially? Durant gives us these wonderfully vivid, almost comically precise descriptions of how both boys and girls begin to change their behaviors in subtle and not so subtle ways.
He truly captures the charming, often amusing essence of this period. For the girl, she begins to bedeck herself more carefully, to dishevel her hair more artfully. 10 hours a day she thinks of dress, and 100 times a day she draws her skirt down over her knees with charming futility. This isn't just vanity or superficiality, it's an intense, almost obsessive focus on appearance, on the subtle signals of attraction, a newfound, heightened awareness of how she is perceived and how she can influence that perception. And for the boy, the transformation is equally telling. He begins to wash his neck and shine his shoes. Half his income goes to the girl, the other half to the tailor. This vividly illustrates the economic and social investment in courtship, the sudden, overwhelming importance of presenting oneself for potential romantic interest. The girl even learns the technique of blushing, a powerful nonverbal signal, and the young man, in the presence of beauty, walks as if he had stolen his legs, a perfect, universally relatable image of self-conscious awkwardness, an almost comical physical discomfort stemming from heightened awareness and budding desire.
What's truly fascinating here is the direct, explicit link Durant makes between these outward behavioral changes, these budding social rituals, and a deeper, more profound internal intellectual development. He doesn't see them as separate phenomena, he sees them as intimately intertwined.
Not at all. He explicitly states, intellectual development comes step by step with the growing consciousness of sex. This suggests that the awakening of sexual consciousness isn't just about physical desire or biological urges, it profoundly stimulates and accelerates cognitive growth. The new complexities of social interaction, understanding subtle cues, managing burgeoning emotions, navigating the delicate dance of attraction and rejection, the need for self-reflection and understanding of others' desires, all these new challenges demand a higher, more sophisticated level of thought. Instinct gives way to thought. Action slips into quiet brooding. This period of intense internal blossoming where there is a blossoming of poetry and imagination, 1,000 fancies and magnificent ambitions flood the soul, is the very groundwork for later creative and intellectual pursuits. It's a time of profound internal exploration and fermentation, spurred by dramatic new emotional and physical realities, transforming the raw energy of youth into something more reflective and introspective.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because as youth examines itself with this newfound self-consciousness, that intense inward gaze also naturally turns outward. It's no longer just about understanding one's own changing self, but also about grappling with the complex, often contradictory changing world around them. The questions become bigger, more existential.
Precisely. Durant says that at the same time youth examines itself, it examines the world. And crucially, it's not a passive examination, not a mere acceptance of what is presented. It stretches out numberless tentacles of questioning and theory to grasp the meaning of the world. It asks inescapably about evil and origins and evolution and destiny and soul and God. These are the big, fundamental, existential inquiries that suddenly become pressing and unavoidable for youth. Why are these questions so urgent, so all-consuming at this particular stage? Because the comfortable, neatly predefined world of childhood has dissolved, replaced by a much larger, more ambiguous reality. The young mind, now capable of complex thought, self-awareness, and critical reasoning, grapples with the vast, often unsettling realities of existence. The innocent assumptions of childhood are shattered, and a profound, often desperate search for meaning begins. They want to know why everything is the way it is.
And this intense questioning, this deep existential inquiry, can lead to profound spiritual and philosophical shifts, and often what looks like a period of intense internal conflict and exploration.
It absolutely can, and it frequently does. Durant observes that religious conversion may come now, or religious doubt. Religion may strengthen itself by self-attachment to the new impulses of love, or it may fight against the widening stream of desire in the soul and awaken a hostility that for a while may rant in revengeful atheism. This highlights the deep internal conflict and spiritual exploration that profoundly characterizes this period. New desires, new intellectual insights, and a burgeoning sense of independence often clash with established beliefs and childhood doctrines, leading to either a powerful reaffirmation of faith, a reinterpretation that accommodates new realities, or an outright, often fiery rebellion against it. It's a testing of boundaries, even spiritual ones. And it's also about this time that youth discovers philosophy and turns it into logic bouts. It's not just reading philosophy in a detached way, it's engaging in passionate all-night debates, fiercely testing ideas, intellectually sparring with peers and even elders, often with unbridled zeal and conviction. Ideas aren't just concepts, they are weapons and tools for understanding, to be wielded in vibrant conversation.
This intense intellectual and emotional overflow, this deep yearning for meaning and expression, also powerfully fuels artistic creation. It's not just abstract thinking. These profound internal shifts become tangible, expressed through various creative outlets.
That intense feeling, that philosophical ferment, that bubbling cauldron of new emotions and thoughts, it all demands an outlet. The full heart flowers into song and dance. The aesthetic sense is nourished with the overflow of desire, music and art are born. The heightened sensations we talked about earlier, the philosophical questioning, the emotional turmoil of this period, the dawning awareness of self and other, all these powerful forces coalesce into a powerful, almost irresistible creative impulse. Art, in its myriad forms, becomes a vital medium for expression, a necessary way to channel and articulate the overwhelming, often inchoate experiences of youth. They create because they must.
But discovering the world also means discovering its darker, more imperfect side. As the idealism of childhood fades, youth is often confronted with harsh realities, and this often sparks a powerful, visceral reaction.
It's a truly rude awakening, one that many remember vividly. Discovering the world, youth discovers evil and is horrified to learn the nature of his species. The contrast with the family unit, which, as Durant points out, typically operates on a principle of mutual aid and unconditional love, is stark and jarring. Society, youth quickly learns, functions on a completely different, often brutal principle. Competition, the struggle for existence, the elimination of the weak and the survival of the strong. This is a profound disillusionment, where the benevolent, nurturing, protective environment of home is abruptly replaced by a harsh, often merciless reality that prioritizes individual success and survival over collective well-being or innate fairness. It's a shock that hits hard precisely because it challenges the very foundation of their early understanding of how humans interact and how the world should operate.
So what's youth's immediate, almost instinctive response to this shocking revelation about the true, often brutal nature of society? It's typically not passive acceptance, but an urgent, passionate demand for radical change.
Exactly. Youth, shocked, rebels, and calls upon the world to make itself a family and give to youth the welcome and protection and comradeship of the home. The age of socialism comes. This connects directly to the idealism of youth, its innate, almost pure desire for justice and fairness, and its fervent belief that a more equitable communal system is not only possible, but morally necessary. The powerful appeal of collectivist ideas, of social reform movements, and even revolutionary ideologies often finds its strongest and most passionate adherents among the young, who envision a world fundamentally reshaped to reflect the caring, nurturing principles they experience in their most formative years within the family. They are not merely asking, they are demanding.
What's fascinating here is how Durant, with his historical lens, describes the eventual, almost inevitable shift that happens after this initial, fervent rebellion. It's not always a permanent state of defiance. Sometimes the world subtly reshapes the rebel.
That's a truly crucial and perhaps sobering observation about the arc of youthful idealism. He says, and then slowly youth is drawn into the gamble of this individualistic life. The zest of the game creeps into the blood. Acquisitiveness is aroused and stretches out both hands for gold and power. The rebellion ends, the game goes on. This describes the pragmatic, often inescapable reality that frequently overtakes youthful idealism. As individuals mature and inevitably need to secure their place in the world, to earn a living, to build a future, they become subtly but powerfully drawn into the very competitive structures and systems they once so passionately rebelled against. The allure of personal gain, of achieving success within the existing system, of gaining influence and security, often proves to be stronger, or at least more practical, than the desire to fundamentally reshape that system. The game of life, with its individualistic rules and rewards, gradually seduces them. This complex journey, from intense self-discovery and intellectual awakening to fervent social rebellion and eventual pragmatic adaptation, ultimately culminates in one of life's most profound and transformative discoveries for youth: love.
Finally, we arrive at what Durant seems to view as the absolute pinnacle of youthful experience, something he sets apart and elevates above all the other phases and achievements we've discussed.
He states it with such elegant simplicity. Finally, youth discovers love. But this isn't just any love, mind you. He acknowledges the preceding formative stages, puppy love, which he beautifully calls that ethereal prelude to the coming symphonies of flesh and soul. And then he mentions the lonely struggles of premature and uninformed desire. These are the innocent crushes, the confusing attractions, the early, sometimes awkward stirrings of romantic feeling, perhaps tinged with frustration or misunderstanding. But they serve a crucial function. They are a progression, a necessary preparation, shaping the spirit and the soul for something far deeper, more profound, and ultimately more transformative.
What's truly fascinating here is how Durant elevates romantic love, setting it above even intellectual pursuits, artistic creation, or the drive for power and social change. He describes it in almost sublime spiritual terms.
He argues that these earlier experiences, these tentative explorations, were only preliminaries that would deepen the spirit and make it ready for the self-abandonment of adoration. He paints a picture of the beloved not just as a person, but almost as a conscious creation in the eyes of the youth, suggesting an idealized, almost transcendent perception that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. And the youth himself is described with such vivid detail. Eager and restless, and yet all courtesy and gentleness, knowing the luxuries of courtship, aflame with something based in the hunger of the blood, and yet something that rises to a marvelous tenderness and loyalty. This speaks to a classical ideal of chivalry, a profound, almost spiritual devotion, and a deep, multifaceted connection where primal physical desire merges seamlessly with emotional adoration and unwavering loyalty. It's a complete surrender of the self to another.
So given all that, what does this perfect union, this specific kind of romantic love he describes, truly represent in the grand scheme of human achievement for Durant? Where does he place it in the hierarchy of human experience?
This is where his argument becomes truly compelling, and for some, perhaps even radical. He asserts with powerful conviction, here is a fulfillment of long centuries of civilization and culture. Here, in romantic love, more than in the triumphs of thought or the victories of power, is the topmost reach of human beings. This is a profound, almost revolutionary statement. He's arguing that emotional and relational fulfillment, particularly in the context of romantic love, doesn't just equal but actually surpasses intellectual conquest, artistic mastery, or even material power and political influence as the ultimate peak of human experience. Why would he place it so high? Perhaps because of its unique capacity for profound self-transcendence, for losing oneself completely in another, for forging a connection that demands immense vulnerability, unwavering loyalty, and selfless devotion, something that intellectual pursuits or power games rarely, if ever, achieve. It represents the ultimate expression of our shared humanity, our deepest capacity for profound, authentic connection and self-giving.
That's a truly beautiful and idealistic vision of love. But this raises an important and rather difficult question regarding the modern world's impact on this topmost reach, the discovery of romantic love and its ultimate expression in marriage. Does the modern world make this ideal harder to achieve?
Indeed, Durant sees a critical and concerning shift even in his time. He notes, "When we were young, we married because romance had caught us up into devotion, but now our precarious and complex life delays marriage ever more and more beyond the age of love." This highlights a significant historical and societal change in marriage patterns driven primarily by economic and social factors. Think about it. The increasing cost of living, the extended educational requirements for demanding careers, the perceived need to build a stable financial foundation before embarking on a family, all these powerful societal pressures push marriage back, often well past the traditional age when romantic love naturally blossoms and seeks expression and commitment. It creates a chasm between biological imperative and social expectation.
So, if nature dictates one timeline for desire and society dictates another for marriage, what does Durant ask about this dilemma? It's almost a direct challenge thrown at society itself, a question he believes we're collectively avoiding.
He puts it bluntly, with a clear sense of societal critique. What is youth to do in the increasing years between the coming of desire and the conquest of some place in the economic world that will warrant marriage? Let him answer who dares.
Oh.
He's highlighting the profound, almost cruel tension created by this societal shift. Natural, powerful desires arrive at a certain age, often in early youth, but the economic and social structures of modern life prevent their legitimate, publicly sanctioned fulfillment in marriage for many, many years. It's a question for which he implies there is no easy or comfortable answer, and one that society, in its collective wisdom or lack thereof, largely chooses to ignore or sweep under the rug. He's daring someone to grapple with the actual consequences.
And this uncomfortable truth, this unresolved tension, leads to a truly bold challenge from Durant, almost a prophetic warning about the long-term consequences of the societal trend if we don't address it.
He doesn't mince words, delivering a stark, almost apocalyptic warning. And yet, is it not time that we should be brave enough to face the issue and understand that civilization must either restore early marriage or abandon love, Kanko? This is profound either-or proposition. He's suggesting that society is at a fundamental crossroads. If we continue to delay marriage indefinitely due to economic or other factors, if we continue to put up these barriers, we risk fundamentally undermining the very institution of marriage and perhaps even the possibility of what he considers the topmost reach of human experience: deep, committed, loyal, romantic love. It's a choice, he implies, with profound and perhaps irreversible societal implications for human happiness and connection. It's a call to honest reflection.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Durant pulls absolutely no punches in his scathing critique of those who moralize about youth's behavior, while conveniently ignoring the very underlying causes that society itself has created. He calls them out directly.
This is a truly scathing condemnation of hypocrisy, delivered with a philosopher's precision. He states, "He who denounces the immorality of youth and then stands by idle while financial caution postpones marriage and therefore promotes promiscuity and makes unnatural demands upon the sex to which love is life. Such a man is a hypocrite or a fool." He's directly linking the moral outrage over youthful behavior to the very economic and societal conditions that unwittingly foster it. The unnatural demands upon the sex to which love is life refers to the fundamental biological and emotional reality that love, particularly romantic and sexual love, is a powerful, innate human drive. To suppress this drive or to make its legitimate, healthy fulfillment contingent on distant economic stability or career milestones is to create an impossible, untenable situation, inevitably leading to the very behaviors that society then condemns. He's saying, essentially, look in the mirror.
This raises an important question about the fundamental, almost elemental power of human desire itself. Can societal rules and moral prohibitions truly contain such a powerful force if those rules go against our innate nature, against our very biology?
Durant argues, quite powerfully, that they cannot, not indefinitely, not without severe repercussions. He declares, desire is too strong to be damned so unreasonably with moral prohibitions. Its power has grown with every generation, for every generation is the result of its selected vigor. Soon the flood of life will break through our insincerities and make new ways and morals for us while we shut our eyes. This is a powerful, almost apocalyptic metaphor for the unstoppable force of innate human drives. He suggests that if society builds too many unreasonable walls, if it creates too much tension between natural biological imperatives and imposed moral or economic restrictions, then those walls will inevitably catastrophically break. The flood of life will find new channels, new ways and morals, potentially overturning established norms and values whether we acknowledge it or not. He warns that this will happen, possibly with unforeseen disruptive societal consequences, precisely because we choose to remain blind to the problem. It's a natural law, he implies, that we defy at our peril.
So, what is the ultimate warning and the profound wisdom Durant offers here about the fundamental choices we are making as a civilization, perhaps without even realizing the true cost?
His final warning is sobering and deeply poignant. Perhaps when it is too late, we shall discover that we have sold the most precious thing in our civilization, the loyal love of a man for a woman, for the sake of the desolate security that cowards find in gold and sword. This is a profound and unsettling statement about the tragic trade-off he perceives us making. He suggests we are sacrificing the deepest, most fulfilling emotional and relational connections, specifically the loyal love between a man and a woman, which he views as the cornerstone of civilization, for what he ultimately views as a sterile, perhaps even fear-driven, material security. It's a searing critique of the modern emphasis on career advancement, financial stability, and material accumulation, often overshadowing or even displacing fundamental human relationship goals. He implies we may lose something truly irreplaceable, something that defines our humanity in this pursuit of a hollow, desolate security.
This culminates in Durant's ultimate advice for youth, and surprisingly, for wisdom itself, concerning how this most precious thing, love, should be treated, nurtured, and prioritized. He offers an ideal, a vision of how to live.
He outlines a path forward, almost a sacred vow, for both the young and the wise. For youth, he says, if it were wise, would cherish love beyond all things else, keeping body and soul clean for its coming, lengthening its days with months of betrothal, sanctioning it with a marriage of solemn ritual, making all things subordinate to it resolutely. This is the ideal, intentional approach to love and marriage. Preparing for it, delaying for it with respectful courtship, formalizing it with profound meaning, and prioritizing it above all else with unyielding resolve. And then he turns the same lens to wisdom, suggesting that wisdom, if it were young, would cherish love, nursing it with devotion, deepening it with sacrifice, vitalizing it with parentage, making all things subordinate to it till the end. This speaks to the enduring commitment required to sustain love throughout the entire course of life, viewing it as something to be actively nurtured, deeply invested in, and given absolute primacy, ensuring it grows and thrives, even through the challenges of raising a family and the passage of decades. It's a lifelong endeavor, a sacred trust.
So what does this all mean for us, you, the listener, in your own life? Durant ends his profound reflections on youth with a powerful, almost desperate plea for the fundamental value of love, regardless of the cost. It's a thought that truly resonates long after you read it.
This raises an important question for us to ponder, a final challenge from Durant that cuts through all the practicalities and fears. Even though it consumes us in its service and overwhelms us with tragedy, even though it breaks us down with separations, let it be first. How can it matter what price we pay for love?
That's a truly profound thought to sit with, isn't it? Is love truly worth any price, any sacrifice, even the inevitable heartbreak, loss, and consuming demands it might place upon us? Is it really the highest pursuit?
Durant, in his closing remarks on youth, suggests that its inherent transformative value profoundly transcends any personal cost or suffering. It's a challenging idea in a world often driven by calculated risks, pragmatic considerations, and material gains, inviting us all to reconsider our deepest priorities and perhaps reevaluate what we truly value above all else. It asks us to be brave enough to choose love.
Indeed. We hope this deep dive into Will Durant's timeless reflections on youth has offered you some surprising facts, a few new perspectives, and certainly plenty of food for thought. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.